Will be in order.
Mr. President, I rise today to reflect on a 6-year term in the United States Senate, which has been simultaneously the most challenging and yet most rewarding experience of my life. I've had the chance to realize a lifelong dream, following in the footsteps of one of my personal heroes, Senator Richard Russell of Georgia.
The Senate will be in order. Please give the senator your attention.
I've been able to represent the state I love and an institution I revere. And I've been able to add my voice to the others that have risen before me in this chamber, from William Fulbright to Harry Truman to John Kennedy to Everett Dirksen to so many other outstanding men and women of history. In my Senate office, I've surrounded myself with small reminders of the men I most admire. I sit at Richard Russell's desk. On my walls, I have photographs of just two people, President Franklin Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Theirs were no ordinary times. We can safely say now, neither are ours. After the Pentagon was attacked on September the 11th, I looked at FDR's picture and finally understood the gravity of his day of infamy, because this generation now has had one of its own. I've used Churchill's and Roosevelt's examples of strength and courage to make it through every day in this town. Some days have been better than others, but every one has been a gift because this has been the life of my dreams. When I came to the Senate, I came to do the best job I could for the people of Georgia and the people of the United States, particularly our men and women in uniform. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish since then. Today, over 60% of our service members are married, and their benefits have finally begun to reflect that fact in order to retain those talented professionals. We knew that the decision to stay in the military is made at the dinner table, not the conference table. So we've increased pay for service members by nearly 20% since I came to the Senate. We've modernized the GI Bill so that service members can transfer their benefits to start a college fund for their children, legislation which I was proud to author.
Senate will be in order.
We set a schedule to eliminate out-of-pocket housing expenses, and we've even added a measure to help families take their pets with them when serving in Hawaii. Keeping the family dog may not be the highest priority for some lawmakers, but it's the whole world to a child moving around the globe as their mother or father serves our country. The family matters to the military member, so the family has mattered to me in my time here. Beyond these individual personnel matters, I became deeply concerned about the shrinking numbers of our U.S. military, and this year was able to raise the ceiling of our force strength. In our new war on what Sam Nunn calls catastrophic terrorism, we must continue to go on the strategic offensive. Our military may be winning the battle, but we will lose the war if we continue to ignore the fact that our forces are critically overdeployed and being asked to do too much with too little. We're out of balance. Our commitments are far outpacing our troop levels, and the situation is only getting worse. Since the end of Operation Desert Storm in 1991, the armed forces have downsized by more than 500,000 personnel, but our commitments have increased by some 300%, including new deployments to Afghanistan, Yemen, the Philippines, Georgia, and Pakistan. Today, a Desert Storm-sized deployment to Iraq would require 86% of the Army's deployable end strength, including all stateside deployable personnel, all overseas deployed personnel, and most forward-stationed personnel. To make the war on terrorism possible, we have activated more than 80,000 Guard and Reserve troops and instituted stop-loss for certain specialties. This is no way to fight a war when our strategic national interests are at stake. The President has rightly told the country to be prepared for a long commitment, but the Pentagon has not requested an increase in end strength for services other than the Marine Corps. Our military is on a collision course with the reality of families they don't see, training they aren't receiving, and divisions borrowing from each other to meet the bare minimum in staffing. We can prevent a loss tomorrow, but we have to act today by increasing our numbers, and I hope that we will. Just as we must go on the strategic offensive overseas, we have to be on the strategic defensive here at home. The Senate has just passed the bill to create a new Homeland Security Department, which was long overdue. For my own part, I'm pleased to see passage of several measures I've worked on that I believe will significantly improve our sense of security here at home. The Homeland Security Bill itself contains provisions to coordinate law enforcement and public health emergencies and to move the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia, into the new department. The Port Security Bill will help the ports of Brunswick and Savannah, Georgia, cut off options for terrorists who want to attack the U.S. on our own shores. And the bus security bill will help ensure that bus passengers are finally accorded some of the same security measures that the flying public receives. I look ahead now and see our nation facing perilous challenges. Iraq and Saddam Hussein are back on our radar screen. We are right to insist on disarmament, and I leave the Senate confident that my vote to give the President the authority to use force to that end was the right one. I also believe my vote to go after Osama bin Laden was the right one. We have miles to go before we sleep on that front. As all of these issues continue, I hope that the Senate and the country will continue to vigorously debate the proper course for our nation's foreign policy. A policy unchallenged is a policy unproven. Why would we wait to prove our theories to ourselves and our allies until our troops are in the field proving our policies for us? When he was in Vietnam, Colin Powell swore to his men, as I swore to mine, that when we were the generals instead of the captains, when we were the senators instead of the sergeants, we would not send our boys into a fight willy-nilly. And we haven't, and we shouldn't. In retrospect, it seems to me that the real failure of Congress in Vietnam was not so much passage of the open-ended Gulf of Tonkin resolution, but its subsequent failure to exercise its constitutional responsibilities after the resolution was passed. Likewise, Congress's vote on the Iraq resolution provided a tangible, militarily obtainable objective, but it did not discharge the Congress of all future responsibilities with respect to our policy in Iraq. After the 1990-1991 Gulf War, General Powell put forth 6 questions which he believed must be addressed before we began military interventions in the future. First, is the political objective important, clearly defined, well understood? Second, have all nonviolent means been tried and failed? Third, will military force actually achieve the objective? Fourth, what will be the cost? Fifth, have the gains and risks been thoroughly analyzed? And sixth, after the intervention, how will the situation likely evolve and what will be the consequences? The first 3 questions have been addressed thus far in terms of Iraq, but when we turn to the final 3 of General Powell's questions, we see the need for some serious and sustained attention, not only by the administration, but by the Congress as well. What will be the cost? Not only the cost of the immediate military operation, but also the cost of what could be a very long-term occupation and nation-building phase. What about the cost for our economy? The mere threat of war has sent oil prices upward and caused shudders on Wall Street. What will a full-blown war do? Have the gains and risks been thoroughly analyzed? And after the intervention, how will the situation likely evolve and what will be the consequences? Secretary of State Powell has said that the purpose of the American military is to prevent war. But if war cannot be prevented, we should go in and win quickly. I'm grateful to have Colin Powell's voice in this debate today, and I'm hopeful we will have his and others like his in the debates of tomorrow. I hope the members of the 108th Congress will ask these questions, and these are the ones I'll be asking from whatever vantage point I move to after January 2nd. In his farewell speech to Congress, General Douglas MacArthur said that old soldiers never die. They just fade away. Well, this old soldier's not going to fade away. I'll take my battles to another front. The people of Georgia have given me a chance to live a life of my dreams here in the Senate, and now I may have the chance to live a life that exceeds my dreams, and I'm grateful for that. As much as Richard Russell achieved for Georgia and for America, he said his greatest regret in his life was that he never married. I'm happy to say that this old soldier has learned a thing or two from Dick Russell, and I'll be getting married to my fiancée, Miss Nancy Ross, after I retire. There is life after the Senate, and it will be a wonderful life. FDR said that the purpose of politics is to generate hope, but for me, the purpose of life is to generate hope. I'll continue to try to live up to FDR's example every day. Before I leave, I just want to say thanks to several people. Senator Robert Byrd for teaching me so much about this great institution, Senators Daschle and Reed for your constant help and support, as well as my colleague, Senator Zell Miller, Senators John McCain, John Kerry, Chuck Hagel, Dan Inouye, and other veterans who have reminded me that nothing is stronger than brotherhood and that some things are more important than politics. I'd like to thank my staff for letting me lean on them, and I thank the entire Senate family, from our chaplain Lloyd Ogilvie to the reporters who cover the Senate, from the wonderful elevator operators to the staff in the Senate dining room, the barber shop, and everyone in between. You've been my friends and my family, and and I'll always remember your kindness. Finally, to my colleagues and the people of Georgia, a song from one of my favorite old westerns comes to mind. Happy trails to you till we meet again. God bless you.
Thank you, soldier.
Do I do this?
Mr. President,
The Senator from Nevada.
I know